Cast. My name is Rod Van Blake, author of the Ancient Illumination series and Yombani Chronicles. I am joined once again by Jocelyn Short.
Yep.
She is a digital artist and content creator herself. She does a whole bunch of concept art, and she's working on a comic named Bearers. Am I getting that right?
Yes.
Okay. So the link to her website as well as my author website will be made available. And hopefully Jordan Purnell Jackson will join us in a second, waiting on him to come online. Today we're talking about Across the Spiderverse.
Woo!
You happy about this one?
Yes. 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 It was so good.
It was good. I heard a lot of people saying that they liked it better than the first, which I did not, but I did still like it a lot. Um, I think it progressed a lot as far as it took things a step further as far as the artistry that it was already hitting on before, and I think it's influenced a lot of animation that's coming out following Into the Spider Verse. So there are going to be a lot more copycats with the way they've made comic book pages come to life while also interjecting realistic looking graphics as well as some 3D elements into the animation and not just flat 2D animation. I think they even made a joke about that during one of the chase scenes in this film when Miles is running from a bunch of the other spider people. Spoiler alert for any of you that have not seen the film yet. Did it come out June 2nd? Was the release date?
I thought it came out. Yeah. Yep. Yep. It came out last Friday.
Yeah, June 2nd it came out, so it's only been out for like a couple weeks now, or a week or so.
Yeah.
So it's a relatively new film, so that's why I like to give everybody spoiler warning when we discuss these things. But it's kind of hard not to discuss plot when we're reviewing a film and saying why we do or don't like something.
Right.
Um, what were your thoughts on this film? I'll let you go first.
I loved it. I had no expectations. I mean, I figured it was going to be good because the first one was phenomenal. And then nobody expected a sequel, and then we got one, and then
Yeah,
the sequel was amazing. Um, the I was really blown away. Like the amount, like even just the amount of visual art styles that were happening so often, interchangeably, all the time was amazing. Like it was done so masterfully. I thought the story was really engaging. Um, all the characters' arcs were really compelling. Um, all the Easter eggs for all of the Spider-Man involved were incredible, and everything was useful. Like nothing that was in this movie, like as much stuff as it had going on, none of it felt like wasted. None of it felt like it was there for no reason. So,
yeah.
I just was amazed.
They packed a lot in to this film. Hey, there he is. Jordan is here. Another digital artist and creator has joined us, jumped in on the live. Jordan Purnell Jackson, creator of Eve of Insurrection and Eve of Reclamation, as well as the digital artist for the graphic novels for Ancient Illumination and the Yombani Chronicles, and he also illustrated Errol J. Knight's Jericho's Bane comic, and I'm sure many more things to come. We were just giving our opinions on what we thought of Across the Spider-Verse. I was telling everyone that I heard a lot of people saying they liked it better than the first one. For me, I liked it a lot, did not like it better than the first one, mainly because, in my opinion, sometimes once you've done something, it's kind of hard to surpass that feeling of that first thing because they were kind of so ingenuitive with what they did with the animation, and we seem like they build upon that with Across the Spider Verse.
I
Um,
I the reason why I felt like it that I don't know if I liked it better than the first, or just I felt like overall, like somehow it topped, like you like that sentiment you're hearing a lot, like somehow it topped the first one. What
mhm.
gave me that feeling was that this movie had so many more elements in it than the first one.
Yeah.
And even with that much more stuff added to it, it didn't feel overloaded. Like,
Mm.
it was all handled very well, which to me gave me that feeling of like somehow this is even like grander. Like they
Yeah.
top it.
Okay. All right.
I
To
felt
add
the
on to
same.
that,
Go ahead, Jordan.
Josh, I don't know. I feel like we run into this problem in our society where we like this is better than the first movie. And the funny part is, that never crossed my mind. Um, I don't, I don't look at like the movie. In my opinion, the movie was at the same level or quality as the first one,
Yeah.
and thus it felt like we were just watching a continuation of the story. And like as Jocelyn said, they kind of like up the ante. They gave us more, but like they delivered. Like it wasn't like had this movie like suffered in certain areas, then we could have that conversation. But I
Yeah.
felt like it was like overall a very like a very good film that expands upon what we've already seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like neither
Manika says, "Welcome back, Jordan. We missed you."
Hey, hey,
Comments.
hey.
yeah, because like neither film was bad by any like the first one was not bad at all. Like it was so good. And so I don't like the being better than is like kind of neither here nor there. It's just kind of like just they gave us more in it. They stuck the landing with more, which
Yeah.
yeah.
Maybe with the more, I don't know if they necessarily stuck the landing at the end. At least not for me.
Oh, this guy.
Um, did the music hit as much for you guys? I was maybe it's like the old head in me. There are only certain
Okay.
parts that really hit. Like when we get to the opening and we get basically more Gwen Stacy's story, and then when
Hmm.
they revert back to Miles, and we're back in Brooklyn, and the hip hop that comes on, that hit hard for me. But overall, the soundtrack was good, but I didn't really rock with it as much as I did on the first one. And maybe I'm thinking I don't know, it was just the
That's
other
fair.
one was more commercialized and it was more
Uh huh.
catchy.
I
Jocelyn,
liked
go.
it. I feel like I need to really sit and like listen to the soundtrack and
Yeah.
consume it because honestly I feel like the soundtrack was doing what it was supposed to do.
Hmm.
Oh, it definitely was.
Also, remember there were two things: the soundtrack, and then there's the score. And
Yeah.
I actually so I like the soundtrack. I like the soundtrack, the Metro Boomin soundtrack.
Mhm.
For this film, like the first track with Sway Lee, and apparently Lil Wayne is on it, which we didn't know that if you step outside the movie and you listen to the album, like oh, the track had Lil Wayne on it too, but or Wayne. So you had James Blake when that song plays Hummingbird
Yeah.
when Gwen Stacy shows up for the first time in his universe. So like the music was very good. And then when they go from like kind of the hip hop to the more kind of conventional I guess orchestral kind of ambient score stuff. It all kind of works very well together.
Yeah.
And but it's also like I don't know, it's interesting with like Black Panther and Into the Spider-Verse, these Miles Morales stories. When it comes to the music, they're like intentionally making it like a separate hip hop album,
Yeah.
and then they have the score. So
Yeah.
like if you go through the actual album with Metro Boomin, it's like there's a track with Future on it. I'm like, what is Future doing here? It's
Yeah.
like G-rated. It's like PG Future. I'm like, what is this? But it's like I think this soundtrack was better than the first one because I listened to the first one was cool. Like he had Jaden on there and he
Yeah.
had some other people, but I also really enjoyed this new soundtrack. It was a surprise. So Metro Boomin did some really good stuff.
Yeah. I found that certain moments vibe with me more in the second one, and I enjoyed them both.
Hmm.
Um, it's not like I have really a preference, but I just think the first soundtrack overall vibe with me more as I was watching the film. It was like you said, it was doing what it was supposed to be doing as we moved along throughout the story. And Jocelyn, you mentioned them doing a lot. I think they did a lot in this film, uh, more so to the Spider-Man fans because they're the ones that are going to get all the deep cuts and the Easter eggs that they're just throwing at you a mile a minute. I could see someone if they were not versed in the comics lore of where all these different spider people came from what timelines they're on.
Uh-huh.
If that they felt a bit overwhelmed, I would understand that. But for people that are knee deep in the streets as far as comics, then they're going to get everything that Sony was throwing at us.
Yeah.
The other thing I was thinking about was if this actually fits in or where, because it's kind of they're on a fine line, I think, because Sony is still technically separate from the MCU. Yet we were seeing things that looked like could vibe with both when they were talking about the Spider-Verse, and you see Miguel trying to explain that. It looked just like what we saw in Loki, as far as the branches of the timeline, and them being kind of disturbed depending on what happened. If instead of Nexus moments or Nexus events that would happen through certain characters,
Yeah.
they were calling it canon.
It is very interesting because they reference Multiverse of Madness. I don't know if you guys caught that. But,
Yep. I think we get
Yeah.
but they referenced Peter Parker, like that Peter Parker in Multiverse.
so goofy.
Yeah.
It's great. I do say, like, I definitely can feel like if you aren't necessarily a Spider-Man fan, you may be overwhelmed. But that said, I do feel like even if you don't know all of the different Spider-Man, you can, like, even if you just, like how Mario and Luigi are just in the zeitgeist, Spider-Man is just in the zeitgeist, and you know that Spider-Man's been in the zeitgeist for, I don't know, what, a century almost. Just a long time.
Yeah.
Stanley, I'm thinking probably older than it probably actually was, but just Spider-Man's been around for a minute. So, like, you can probably, like, if you see it, you're like, dang, I didn't realize there were that many Spider-Man.
Yeah, it's a huge IP, I think, with regard to what's been done with it through the years, and it almost feels like certain people I know are missing a bunch of the flavor there because they have no idea what the references are. And it's not that that's necessarily a bad thing. It's just that you weren't overwhelmed. I certainly wasn't overwhelmed. I could certainly see someone who's not in the know looking at all this like, what is exactly happening?
My thing is, why are you watching a Spider-Man movie?
I will say that
What are you doing there?
I'll
Because
say
everybody is
I don't
watching.
know anything. I didn't know who Hobie Brown was. I didn't know
either, and I will
I
say
didn't know who it was, but I was like, oh snap, we got British Spider-Man,
Yeah.
punk Spider-Man. What do you like?
a friend of mine, we have went to see the first we went to see Into the Spider-Verse together. And she doesn't watch Marvel movies. Like, she feels like most superhero movies are the same, like the plot is the same. She gets bored by them all the time. So she doesn't watch them. But we had invited her to see Into the Spider-Verse, and she was just like, why not? And she was blown away. So, like, she's not caught up on that stuff, and even, she was able to still, like, enjoy it. So I feel like even if you're not into it, and know, because I didn't know about Hobie. Most of those spider people that were in this movie, I didn't really know. I knew some, but I didn't know, like, everything.
Yeah.
So
Did it seem a bit like Loki to you though?
yeah, I honestly, this movie gave me the same feeling as Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Okay.
I was thinking Rick and Morty as well. That crossed my mind.
I was thinking more Loki, mainly because we have the Lokis, a bunch of different multiversal Lokis, and all of them supposedly are like the troublemakers of the timeline. The TVA is purposely going out to clip them. The difference is they flipped it. Instead of them being the antagonists that everybody's searching for, most of them are the protagonists, and they tried to make it seem like Miles was the anomaly that basically caused this chain reaction, which I don't think he is. I don't know what you all think. We're going to get into that, but I think either Miguel or Gwen may actually be the anomalies that started all the trouble, because they technically disrupted their canon happening. Because Pops, I've already said it before we started recording. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen Across the Spiderverse. But Gwen's dad quits.
Right.
right? Doesn't
Yep.
become captain of the police force.
That's
That's
supposed to
true. That's
be.
true.
So
Yeah,
he's supposed to be the captain, I think, that dies in that world. It wasn't just Peter Parker in that universe.
right.
And Miguel basically admits to Miles that he wasn't even in his own timeline. He
Mm-hmm.
just found another timeline where his family, where he had actually died and his family lived. And he just decided he was going to go replace the other him. And it ruined everything. So I was tripping like, how is he calling Miles an anomaly when you know you weren't even living where you were supposed to be living the whole time?
Yeah, I think he just brought everybody into his huge mistake. I think
Mm.
he got everybody on board to believe like, oh, if you make a mistake, you're ruining everything when that's just what he did. Because clearly, as you just stated, we've seen in this movie, that canon events aren't necessarily canon events.
Yeah.
Like you can break the canon at will, hit, wherever or whenever it happens, and it doesn't necessarily break everything down. Or at least if it does, maybe it did break something, like,
Yeah.
but we don't know what it is. I think with Miguel, what he specifically tried to do, like, I guess whatever other universe he went to, he was able to see the damage caused and was like stressed out, made it everybody else's problem.
Yeah.
So we don't know, but I don't know. I don't think, like, I feel like the only way to know if you broke it is if you made it your business to go to that other place and see it.
Yeah.
So
Question for y'all. Do you think Prowler Miles in 42 is actually the hero of a Sinister Six run universe? I don't know if you caught all the Easter eggs, but the Sinister Six,
Yeah.
but it's all over, and the color scheme is different in World 42. Everything is purple and green rather than red and blue, but there's like signage up all over the place when Miles is when he gets transported back to that universe instead of his own, because the machine detected the DNA in the spider and not just his DNA alone. But what if that Prowler he finds is because he didn't become Spider-Man, he became Prowler, but since it's run by evil corporations, maybe he's fighting back against the Sinister Six in his own way.
I would rather him be one of the leaders of the Sinister Six.
Oh, that would be dope.
That like, and it did that also crossed my mind watching the film, like that. It's funny you brought that. I thought about that, like how would the Sinister Six play in this? What if the Prowler has his own Sinister Six? I thought that would be dope. But I was
so I am not what is Sinister Stick? Who's a part of that? What is that?
There's Vulture,
Is Electro in
Scorpion,
there?
Electro,
There was a
uh,
vampire guy in there once, right? I
which
don't think
vampire guy?
he's not a vampire, but
You're not
oh
talking
god,
about Morbius, are you?
no, not Morbius. This
Okay.
guy, oh gosh, I know his outfit. But continue. It's just a group of villains.
Yeah, it's a
Is
group of
Rhino in
villains.
there too? Is Rhino in
Yeah,
there?
Rhino's in there.
Rhino's in there. Somebody else is in there. Doctor Ock is probably in there for all we know.
Yeah, but they're basically Spider-Man's part of Spider-Man's like rogue, his gallery of villains
Mm-hmm.
basically have this, and then they're sometimes interchangeable. Different ones will take place within them, but there's lots of signage for them owning different things in that world. When you see, like, what the heck is 2G? Like, there was 2G phone service. Like,
They don't
like
even got
it
real
wasn't
phone
even
service
4G or
anymore.
5G. They gave them like 2G, and like the corporations are owned by the villains, and they're giving them horrible cell phone service,
Right.
among other things. But yeah, I was thinking that would be crazy if he thinks he's coming in to save something, and the Prowler in that universe, because he didn't become Spider-Man, innately, if he's still just a good person overall, and they flipped it where Pops is gone and not Uncle Aaron. Let me go back to that. What did y'all think of Childish Gambino cameo
Prowler.
in live action as Uncle Aaron from the MCU?
It happened. Did I say, oh, when it happened? I think it was kind of goofy when they kept cutting back to him, in my
Yeah,
opinion. It was kind of unnecessary. I just wanted. We just need to see him once. They didn't have to cut back to him, but
I was appreciative. I was like, I'm glad they put him in this movie to let him do something.
just to
Yeah,
sit in a
it
cage.
was out of place, but I was like, I'll allow it. Like it's all good. We gotta let that one pass. Just
Crazy.
I miss the days of like integrating live action with animation. I was like,
It,
oh, this is fun.
it was good though. He's a big part of the reason why we even have the movie. So
That is true.
I was grateful
Yeah.
that he was. I was like, oh yay, they put him in there. They let him do something. I'm happy about it.
I'm not so sure they weren't gonna have that film anyway, though. Well, Donald Glover and the stuff he did on the other TV show he was on, that they keep rehashing.
Was it? We talking about Community? Was it
Community,
Community?
yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people are saying that that's the reason why we got
I did
Miles
see
Morales
that.
was because of that. We also get a cameo by Mrs. Chen from Venom.
I didn't know that because I haven't seen the Venom movies. I didn't know that that's.
They're not good. They're not good movies. They're not good movies.
I hear that they're campy
terrible.
movies, and I'm
They're
interested
terrible.
if they're campy. So I'm gonna watch them if they're campy. I hear that they're campy.
It's
So
not good camp though. It's like not even good camp.
but I see the memes and
Morbius is good camp.
No, it's not.
Yes, it's Morbius
Whoa.
is like an early 2000s. Is
Oh
like
my
the quintessential early 2000s superhero movie. It was just
Now
made in the wrong time, but now that's camp.
I have
have to see
refrained.
both.
Even it's on Netflix now, and I have refrained from seeing that movie. I may have to peep it out now.
It's good camp.
Now I have to see both because I feel like your take is the opposite of the truth. So,
Hey, we all have different tastes. We all have different tastes.
but we'll see.
Yeah, Jocelyn, you said this film stuck the landing. I did not like being.
Oh, you mean like the literal ending?
Yo, this guy clearly doesn't like cliffhangers. Rod, have you ever watched it?
Hold on. Before you go into that question, I don't mind you giving me a cliffhanger if you've already absolved at least one of the main conflicts that you gave us in this film. And then you want a sequel, baby? That's fine. But you close this door, at least somewhat close it before you just. And they didn't even do that. They just to be continued us. Like,
I will say my thoughts on it. So I could tell when it was getting ready to end. I was like, all right. Well, first things first. I was starving.
Okay,
So
wow.
I was like ready. I was okay with it ending because I was starving. But I saw the ending coming, and I was like, okay, all right, cool. Like, and I was cool with it because I could tell what they were getting ready to set up, and like I have 2 points. One point is that like whatever the ending is gonna be, they already know what it is. It's already probably like done, but they probably just wanted to like really give it more time. And my second point is that I think they cut it because whatever the ending is gonna be, it was already gonna add like probably another hour and a half.
Exactly. That's true.
I get that. But my thing is, we're probably not going to see this till what, 2025?
It's no, they said it a year out.
Okay.
That's why
That's still not a problem. Yeah, I'm not worried about that.
I'm saying they already like that makes me think that they already have the ending. Like it was already worked on.
They wrote it before the strike.
Right. So
they wrote it before the strike. No edits are needed. Go straight into animation.
Yes, probably before the strike, but also just like before this movie was like released. The ending to it was probably already like thought about, partially, if not mostly finished. So yeah. I'm not worried.
You got to give me a good place to end on.
It was a good place. He got out of the Spider-Verse. If we look at the trajectory of the story, so I agree with Jocelyn. I agree with you, and Rod. I believe I saw the ending come. I knew after a certain point, like
time wise, right?
They were gonna time wise, time wise. I was like, it's been 2.5 hours. Even if I didn't know the movie was 2 minutes and 20 seconds, like around the 2 hour mark, like you could feel the movie winding down. And I'm like, all right, Miles got to his universe. And technically that is a resolution to a story, to a part of the story. It is. It's a solution.
Another thing.
Go ahead, John.
Sorry. Another thing about this movie is that, like, I've watched several interviews and stuff. This movie was mainly about Gwen's arc. And Gwen's arc, as from what I understand, has been resolved with
That's
this
an
movie.
interesting point.
So,
Okay.
no, go ahead.
So, like the fact that like we kind of got that resolution, I was like, all right, this feels like this could be an ending, but it's not because we still have the Spot running around, and then other was it Miguel has to still capture him or try to capture him, and I was like, all right, so I know this movie is going to end on a cliffhanger, but didn't see that cliffhanger coming. That particular spin coming. I was like, oh, we got Negative Miles. And then I messed up. I was like, oh, Negative Miles sells drugs. And my wife was like, why'd you say that? And I'm like, I don't know. I just wanted to go completely dark with it. Like, what if he was like, well, I was like, what if he sold drugs? I'm like, no, that's messed up. That's racist. I'm like, fine.
I don't think
Stereotypes. I'm
they'll go
like,
that
valid point.
far.
But they wouldn't go that far. But then on the second watch, I was listening to things like when what's his name? What's his name? Jameson? What is his name? Jay Jameson, the newscaster guy.
Jonah Jameson.
Jonah, whatever. Yeah. Jonah is talking on like the news, and he said something about like something cartel. And then that kind of hit in my head. And then like Aaron's talking about, we about to do the drop, or doors open at 6, something like that.
Yeah.
They clearly, if anything, they're gonna steal something. They're doing something illegal, clearly. So
I'm
I was
thinking
like,
they might be the Robin Hood of that universe, though.
why you want to beat up Negative? I mean, if that was the case, then why, like, if we're using color scripts, like color scripting in lighting, why make him seem so, like, give him this kind of like villainous, like eerie vibe? Like they play the
Because
same music.
the spider was taken, so you don't get that red and blue variable.
But why you gotta? True. That's a good point. But regardless, why does he have to be a hero? If he's a villain, he's a villain.
Have to be. He doesn't have to be. But
they've
shown that there are certain constants within the varying universes as far as the individuals are concerned. Right. So, like Uncle and Pops may flip, but it doesn't necessarily mean that Miles will necessarily flip. And since that catalyst that was supposed to turn him into Spider-Man got snatched, he still goes the route that he was going to go, just with technology and just him, and not, superpowers. I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't have enough information. We just know that what's his face has braids and has the Prowler glove. I don't know if he runs I want him to run a criminal syndicate.
That'd be hilarious.
I want him to run a cartel. I think that'd be dope, because it would just, in my opinion, I think, like, from a story perspective, I like literally don't want to look at I don't want to see the same type of Miles. Like, give me Negative Miles. Let's go left. Give me something that would be a contrast to the character that we're seeing.
Monica says, regarding international acclaim, I don't think Across the Spiderverse will win as many awards as Into the Spider-Verse, because the sequel story stretches across at least 2 movies. I don't know whether that's going to affect I certainly think it's going to be in a lot of running for things, mainly because of what they did add on to what they did last time. They didn't give us the exact same template. It's a little different. So if they may have done enough, and really, who else is going to be in the running animation-wise?
That's what I'm saying. Disney, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear Disney. Y'all not getting this one. I want to give this one to Sony right now.
Yeah.
They deserve it. Also, I just feel like Into the Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse, the only other like show or animation thing that I feel like has been as innovative as what they've been doing is Arcane, with how they've animated their show. I don't know if you guys have seen Arcane.
I think I watched one episode of it.
Okay. The League of Legends Arcane?
That joint. You watched it, didn't you? Right?
I watched it. Yeah, I watched the whole thing.
Yeah.
I want to do something like that.
You said what?
I was telling Jordan a while ago, like, you need to look at this, see if we can do something like this.
If you got to watch some documentaries about how they made that show. Like, that show was 10 years in the making. and it
Jesus
was a
Christ.
long shot of trying to
Jesus
get because
Christ.
like it every frame, like yeah, there's 3D models of the characters, but like they're literally hand painted. Like everything, all the frames hand painted. It's crazy. And then also on top of that, like they weren't even sure that that show was going to be a success. Nonetheless, as successful as it was. So they don't have a season 2 in mind. They're making it all from scratch right now. So we may not get a season 2 for 5, 7, 10 years, maybe. Probably
Okay.
not as long because they figured some things
Probably figured the process out, right?
Hmm?
They probably figured out the process, so it shouldn't take them as
Yeah,
long.
I
And
think that,
funding is generally always a factor. So it's like,
League of
hey,
Legends had the money though.
that's what I'm saying. Y'all got a lot of money. Could have,
it's true.
man, they'll get it done faster maybe this time going.
I don't think it'll take the same 10 years, but I don't think it'll be like 2 years, So we'll see.
Yeah. Did y'all think that Sony was basically trying to shoehorn themselves in the MCU with the dimensions? Like you said, that they mentioned Multiverse of Madness by way of Miles saying, Doctor Strange, that nerdy kid in the 99999.
Yeah.
I don't think
Oh.
Marvel would have just let them do that. I feel like
I
they,
feel like the word shoehorning is it's a little forceful
They
here,
like
y'all.
it seems like they
But
like to dip their toes in, but they
they
don't
did
really want to.
dip their toes in.
Yeah, because they don't, they don't want. Of course, it's a cash cow, right? They've seen how much
Yeah.
success Homecoming and Far From Home and what the other one is have made in conglomeration with Disney. So they're like, yeah, we'll loan you Spider-Man for a little bit, and then we'll have these reminders that we're all a part of that too. Like,
I
but
mean, because
can't win.
Marvel in associating with Marvel shows
Yeah,
up on
yeah,
top of the credits. So it's kind of like, and we all know what time it is. Like, we know that they have a business relationship and that they're sharing this character, and Sony does what they're going to do with it, and Marvel will do their own thing. So
I also feel like and of course I don't know, right? But I also feel like Marvel probably saw the success of Into the Spider-Verse and was like, yeah, no, we're gonna make sure that like we're tied.
they want their money. They
Yeah,
want some money.
yeah.
How did y'all feel about Paviter, the Indian Spider-Man?
He's great.
He
I
was
loved
hilarious.
He's great. He's hilarious. He had jokes for days.
I loved it.
My wife was cracking up over the chai tea reference because we've heard that before from another Indian comedian saying they can't
It's
say chai
true.
tea because chai means tea.
He,
You're saying TT. Do
Mhm.
you say
yeah,
coffee, coffee? She
yeah.
was she
It's
was rolling. I liked him. He was different. The way he moved, like they had mixed Mumbai and Manhattan together in one. They just
Bad.
made Mumbai.
Mom bad.
Also, another thing that was interesting about him, I saw somebody else talk about this too, but it's the fact that even in his world in Mumbai, he disrupted a canon event because he's the most he's the most joyful Spider-Man. No tragedy has happened to him. Okay.
Well,
Technically, Miles
technically,
was
it's
the one
Miles.
that.
Yeah, Miles robbed him of that tragedy. Yeah,
Well,
Miles robbed him of that
Yeah,
tragedy.
the
And that's
captain was supposed to die.
well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying. That's another example of a canon event interrupted that didn't
Yeah.
happen. So
and that leads me to ask a question. So when when Miles saves the detective in that universe, the captain in that universe, and then everybody shows up and it's like we got to contain the anomaly. It seems like they have contingencies and systems to contain these canon events.
Yeah.
So, and like y'all were mentioning earlier, like it doesn't like at this point Miguel is just projecting because he's an anomaly, like you're saying, he's an anomaly in itself in himself, and it's kind of like it's very interesting that this story forces the one black Puerto Rican kid to create him to be the anomaly or the problem or the conflict of the story.
Yeah, which
And
is why I'm saying he's not because of the other,
yeah,
like you've all
he's
mentioned, the
not.
other two.
But what would you do? What would you do?
That my thing was like, how you gonna ask somebody to watch their daddy die? You just
it's
sitting
I
crazy.
gotta
there.
watch him die, and then also people I don't know, a whole universe of people may die. I'm like, why do we keep getting these stories where it's like I gotta choose between like one person and like an entire universe of human beings and potential? And it's
I
like,
also, I also just feel like it's kind of dumb that you would even tell him. I feel like if you really wanted to keep him from this canon event or whatever, or let the canon event happen. Like, don't, like, yeah, bring him here or do whatever you got to do, but you don't have to tell him this information. Like, how would you react if somebody told you, like, yeah, you actually have to watch your dad, like, this actually happened?
I think he was gonna know even if they didn't tell him because of the clues Spot kept dropping.
Yeah,
Spot was
he
telling him.
did, but that I think he caught it when he saw that vision.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
There's been a lot of speculation too about perhaps that Miguel is working with maybe the Kangs and the TVA. That because he got in trouble for messing up, and so they put it on him to control the Spider-Verse timelines in the same way that the TVA is supposed to be doing with the Sacred Timeline throughout. But theirs just closely tied mainly to the Spider-Man.
I did hear about that. I don't think I'm ready for that.
I'm not even going to entertain that. I'm not entertaining this, and you need to prove that first. Like, that's a cool idea. That's a cool concept.
There's speculation on, like, where did he get the watch? If it wasn't available in 2099 or wherever his universe is, like, where did he get the watch that allows him to just travel back and forth between verses? And who else would have that capability? Is it another speculation was maybe it was Madam Spider?
Who?
The OG Spider Woman. She's real old, got this little blindfold thing on her head, and
I thought what I saw was that, and I might be wrong about this. I'm probably wrong, but I thought what I saw was Miguel, like, is part of an organization, and either he did or the organization invented the watches.
Yeah, but I'm saying, well, then who is
in charge of that task force?
Him.
That movie doesn't answer those questions. These are speculation.
Yeah, that's what I'm speculating. Like, who is above him in this Spider-Verse wrangling?
Miguel bit them all. Miguel killed them all with his vampire abilities that he doesn't use in the story, and which I'm still like trying to piece that together. Like, wait, why is he vampiric? Yeah. And then I was like rewatching it. I was like, wait, so why does he bite the vulture? What does he have to gain from biting him? They do that weird, nice, quick 1 second. It was really quick, where he's about to bite him. His face transforms. He's like, and then goes back to normal. And I was like, I want to know what that was about. More questions.
I felt like we were left with more questions than answers by the time this thing ended, because it did really just bring you to a cliff, like you running full speed to the cliff and you stop looking over the abyss, like, oh, I guess we're not getting there, because the gang is all coming for Spider-Gwen. She called in the OGs to come in from the first
gang.
And the gang is coming up, but we don't see them arrive. We just see that was so funny. Mayday, the baby, as Peter B. Parker was sleeping, she's hanging upside down, pointing out the window where her eyes bugging because the portal opened up for Spider-Gwen, and then she called all her friends. So I'm thinking they're gonna go rescue Miles' pops while Miles is stuck dealing with whatever's going on in the 42 universe, and then they're gonna have to remedy, because Miguel, I think, is actually on his. He probably errantly went to the real universe that Miles was supposed to go to, that he didn't end up showing up, because they're all looking for him. He ain't there.
This is giving me. What was this? I'm trying to think of a story that's coming into my mind. It's like the idea that they're gonna have to that Gwen's team may have to split off into 2 teams.
Yeah, they're gonna have to
we're gonna have to solve 2 different solve 2 missions at the same time. We need a whole movie for that.
We got to rescue Pops, and we got to stave off Miguel while Miles is getting out of whatever trouble he's in on World 42.
I have to say, I liked Gwen's arc, and she came around or whatever. Her white girl faux pas in this movie sent me over the edge.
I need a microphone.
Oh, she's climbing.
Say it again, Jocelyn. Say it again, Jocelyn. Say it in the mic, please. Come on, just say it in the mic, please. This story revolved around her, but whatever. Anyway.
White girl faux pas.
Oh my God, she had a mic. You had a mic. Amazing. Okay, sorry. Continue what you were saying.
The white girl faux pas that she committed in this movie sent me into space. Okay, in space, when she was meeting his parents and she called them by their first names, I was like, what's going on? Like,
Disrespect.
have some decor. And then when she was in his universe and they came out of his room with his coat on and he's missing,
Oh yeah, she was wild.
I was like, what is wrong with you? I have some decor. What's going on?
What do you mean? His
You're
window was
showing
open.
up these people's house. You're showing them up in a black and Puerto Rican household. Like, come on now.
I'm like,
It's too much. Just
yes.
freely coming and going and just going with it. And then I mean, you set my man's up from jump.
Yeah, I'm like,
Didn't want to see him, but then shows up on a mission and acting like, oh, I'm just here to stop by and say hi because I miss you. Yeah, whatever.
it stressed me out so bad. Like she was an op for a good portion of the movie, and then she's doing this crazy stuff, just like treating his parents like they're just casual. Like this is a casual thing. I'm like, oh my god, and I was so stressed out. I was like, Miles, why didn't you talk to her about how this goes? Why? I don't know. I was stressed. I had to voice that. That stressed me out real bad.
I was a little disappointed in Peter B. Parker too, because he knew what was going down and didn't hit Miles to anything. Just like, we're just gonna hang out, just come here. I just like you. I became a dad because of you. Not even.
It was also really weird because and I probably feel like I have to rewatch this to process this better, but I feel like it was really weird that like Peter B. Parker was trying to also harangue Miles and like get him to go along with this whole plot of like, yeah, this is good for you, but like you're also saying that like you're the reason why I even have this baby. You interrupted my canon event. What are you talking like?
Well, I thought about like when he said that. I thought that was like a more kind of humanizing moment. I mean, he's always been humanized because he's that Peter, but I thought of it like he actually loved Miles enough that like he's like, oh, I would like to have my own child one day, and like hopefully, like he said that, so it was kind of like I kind of got him, like that was an interesting connecting moment, but he still was playing him the whole time. The whole gang, literally the whole gang was.
Yeah. Like I think it was a situation, at least with him, and I'm sure for both of them, for him and Gwen, that two truths are existing at once. Where like, yeah, they do care about Miles, but they're also gonna sell him out to Miguel. Okay, so
ultimately.
Hobie's a real one. Hobie's a real
yeah. Oh,
I feel like
Hobie Brown.
And I don't know what her name is. Another Spider Woman, the one that was
Jessica Drew.
No. The one that was like Cortana, basically. She was purple glowy.
Yeah.
Those were the only two I felt like they were like looking out for him on the low.
Oh, the other black,
other black Spider Woman that was there, and she was in the lab.
Avatar. She was an Avatar in the series.
She was gonna let it. She was gonna let it ride. The ticker was timing down. She wasn't doing like I can't. She's like I can't do nothing. What you want me to do? And Miguel was trying to break in, and then it was too late.
Yeah, those were the only real ones in the movie.
I wonder how Hobie's gonna fit in now because he gave up his wristwatch to Spider-Gwen.
They on the same team. It don't matter.
Oh, I know, but he can't hop in and out now without that. I'm assuming
he probably made that. He probably could. What is it called? Jailbreak another one.
Okay.
I was gonna say jury rig, but jailbreak is the. I like the jailbreak. He could jailbreak another one. He's literally anarchy. He's good.
Yeah, in this movie, you saw him like stealing parts to just like make one on the fly. So,
guys, dope.
Yeah, I didn't know what he was. I just know he was stealing stuff. I didn't know if that's what he was. He was making another watch. He was just snatching stuff off the walls, snatching.
No, he was here to make that watch.
Wow. Yeah. He saw. He was looking ahead. He was like, "They're gonna play my man's, bro."
He said it right away when they first got to that world. He said to Gwen, "How much have you told him?" He was like, "You didn't tell him anything."
He's in the dark.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was what back in the day for me was considered woke. This new stuff. He was the woke one. He realized what was really going on and was trying to hip Miles to the conspiracies of what was going like. Don't trust all these people telling you to do something. Just know what you're signing up for before you sign up.
Mm-hmm.
And Gwen said, "What are you telling? You ain't telling them nothing?" Nah, figures. He was whispering in his ear the whole time. It was kind of hilarious. Every time somebody was telling him something, he's like, "Don't you trust him?"
It's great.
He's that black spirit that's helping you and black ancestor that's
Yes.
helping you the whole time.
Yes.
Going through life, you're like, hey, don't trust these white people.
What do you think about his animation? Because it was kind of cool, like paper, like newspapery, comic book paper, and then it would change
colors. He kept changing colors.
Perfect.
Wow.
It
Yeah,
was
perfect.
because he kept, his whole thing. He doesn't believe in consistency. His animation, his very animation, was not consistent, not one time.
No.
So it was perfect. Hobie's perfect. I love
a Hobie movie. I want a Hobie movie.
Under the mask. I was always just cool under the mask.
It was funny because when I listened to the voice, I didn't know who the actor was. I'm like, this voice sounds familiar. I'm like, this is a black guy. I'm like, I don't know who this guy is, but I know he's black. And then when he showed him, I was like, oh my God, his hair is gorgeous. I was like, yes. That's the most, and then I found it was Daniel Kaluuya. I was like, oh, yeah, better.
Like, of course. Something that I thought was interesting that I saw somebody else talk about was like the moment where they all where they're talking about the canon event of Spider-Man, and all of them are all saying that, like, yeah, this has all happened to every single one of us. It gets to Hobie and he says, yeah, what of it? I heard some people interpret that as like him, and it could be read both ways, of either Hobie saying like, yeah, what about it? Like, so what? Just in general, but also him saying, yeah, so what? To Miles. Like
you ain't special. All of us went through it type of thing.
Or not even just that, but just like, yes, so like almost insinuating like that spark of anarchy even then. Just saying like, so what? Doesn't have to be you, almost.
I don't know. It was funny. When he said that, I interpreted it as if something he had processed. Like I would have. I mean, I've never read a comic book with Spider-Punk, but I was curious if like maybe his response was based on the fact that like he's already dealt with those emotions and the trauma, so it's kind of like, yeah.
That's how I read it. Like at first when he said it, and then somebody said that like maybe it could have also been interpreted that way, and I was like, that's interesting. But yeah, on first read, like, yeah, it was just like, yeah, that happened, so what?
Move on.
Yeah.
What you gonna do now?
Yeah.
What we doing next?
What are we rating this out of 10?
10 out of 10 for me.
Okay.
Jesus, I just saw a post and it was like this person wasn't trying to give it a 10 out of 10. And I felt like I was gonna just follow that.
Did you watch Cosmonauts review? Is that what you
No, I didn't watch. I watched a personal review on someone reviewed on Facebook. It's, if I'm gonna be honest, it's probably gonna be like I should do 9.5.
Okay.
Because the movie, like, it did in my opinion, I think actually initial watch, I was a little I was actually overwhelmed by the visuals. And I don't know what it is. It's like my personal taste in animation. But like I felt like at times like there was moments in the beginning when I watched the beginning scene where Gwen and Miles are like swinging through the city and like just this kind of montage.
Yeah.
I kind of critiqued it in the sense of like, why were there so many edits? Like, why was it cut at a certain pace when it didn't need to be? That was something I was kind of critical of, because that scene kind of stood out, but everything else felt like it worked very well. Like when we're in the scene where he's in the Spider-Verse and they're kind of like climbing up that vertical train, and all the Spider-Man after, like, quick edits like that work very well, or just even in the fight scenes with the Spot, like those elements were like perfect for the tone and what was happening. But like outside of that nitpick, and everybody showed up and did their job in a way. Like the animation was flawless. The characters and their journeys, like Miles's mom kind of like learning to let her son go. It was like an interesting kind of theme. The dealings with just relationships and family, like it was all very consistent. It was all It was all on brand, and I personally loved the cliffhanger. I was like, yes, great way to stick it to everybody, because every time I watch a movie lately, it feels like when we watch films that are supposed to be, they're intentionally promoted as this is part one and part two. And I think when you walk into a movie, you have it's like you're giving everything. You're giving all this information in a way. Like you're giving the expectation that, oh, this is just one fraction of a whole. But I was actually pleasantly surprised to get that nice to be continued. I was like, hey, I haven't seen that in a minute since like The Matrix. Hit me with a to be continued.
Yeah, I assume it's going to be continued, but I would have rather that I knew ahead of time that that's what was happening,
Mm.
and for me to
But
be left on the precipice there without something is what kind of brings it. That's basically my only critique of it, and I'll give it like an 8.5. Whereas I think I rated the first one a 9 because I find it really hard to give something a 10 if it's like it's got to be perfect on every level, and it's hard for me to give that rating. So this one I'd give an 8.5. First one I'd give a 9. And mainly because of the ending and where we were left off. Everything else I think was great. I agreed with all of your points as far as the animation, the music, how the story flowed overall. I like that each universe kind of had its own feel and personality to it.
yep.
Each one like had its different style. The Vulture in the beginning, the Michelangelo era Vulture, almost he wasn't black and white, but he was like brown,
He
almost
was
like
sepia paper.
He
yeah,
was
it was
a blueprint. He was literally Da Vinci's blueprint
He
of the
was paper.
of the
yeah.
wings. It was so good.
It did some interesting, very interesting things, and that's why I think that in some ways they did elevate beyond what they did initially. It's just for me that anyway, you can't bring me out to tread water and leave me in the middle of the ocean.
I was excited. It got me
Without
excited.
letting me
I
know
don't
that
get this.
without letting me know that
But
you
I got a question. So you've been on this earth a little bit longer than me. So
yeah.
when you went to a movie and you got hit to be continued, how'd you feel about that when you were younger? I'm referencing The Matrix because that's the only thing I have a reference point to. But were you just like, oh, this is terrible? What is this? This sucks because they hit me with to be continued, the cliffhanger.
But was it a cliffhanger? Didn't he beat Mr. Smith at the end of one?
You know what's really funny? You know what? Dang it.
They
He did. He
yeah.
did. So you're right.
Yeah.
So, well, I mean, so was Matrix Reloaded or Matrix 1 the one where Trinity dies and they hit us with to be continued? I thought they did. Was that Matrix 1 or Matrix
I
Reloaded?
think that may be Reloaded.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
have to go back and look. Yeah.
I have to. But yes.
Reloaded.
So you're correct. They did. I mean, he did fight Mrs. Smith. It was very resolved.
Yeah, things kind of evolved. He beats Mr. Smith, and the
He
Mr. Smith
did.
was
Oh
like a virus
man,
within the system.
it did feel.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I don't blame you. You know what? You have a point. You have a good point.
With the Matrix, you have a point that
They,
it ended.
they did set it up to where something was supposed to, it was like gearing up for the climax, and then it cut you off right at the climax. So
you see the scene, they're running, they're doing the little run up to the thing, and then you see Miles, sneak his finger out one of his gloves to like he's about to electrocute one of the chains that he's wrapped around him.
Looking like Bow Wow.
Like he don't like, okay, to be continued. Like what?
I'm just excited. It reminded me of Infinity War. When Infinity War.
Thank you. That too.
And I'm not saying it's the same because
good call, Jocelyn.
No, I'm not saying it's the same thing because Infinity War was resolved. The bad guy won at the end of Infinity War.
That was this generation's version of Empire Strikes Back, where the villain at the end wins. But
I'm not saying it's the same thing. Yeah. I'm just saying that it felt similar because yes, we were left with a cliffhanger, but we also have a date when it's coming back out, and it's in a year. So it reminded me of it gave similar feelings for me to Infinity War, which gets me very excited.
Yeah, I don't know if it.
I will also.
Infinity War hits a lot harder because of what happened then, and we didn't know at the time whether that was going to be reconcile differently. I think everybody in the back of their mind knew everybody was coming back, but at that moment when you see everybody start falling to dust particles,
Getting dusted.
I listen, I agree with you. It does not hit the exact same, but I will tell you even more so why it's impactful for me, that it gave even similar feelings to Infinity War. Infinity War was a decade worth of films. Spider-Verse, we got one film and then we got a sequel that we didn't even know we were supposed to have. And it incited similar feelings to a sequel coming out in a year.
Yeah, that's why I think it's a bad comparison, because of the 20-something year buildup of films.
Well, yeah, but
Led
what
to
I'm saying that, like, for me, that's still impressive that it's
Yeah.
been able to invoke a similar, feeling to me to
Yeah.
Infinity War.
People were second go around. People were heated when the movie ended, and I'm like, nice. And I think when you go to movies, that's why I'm on team cliffhanger,
Oh,
because
you like the pissed off reaction? That's what it
yes,
is?
of course I do. That means you cared about the movie.
Yeah,
That means you're
good.
invested.
It's a good
That's what matters.
it's
That's what matters. That's how you know the movie's good. If I sat through a movie and then it said to be continued, I was like, man, whatever. Then the movie wasn't good. You really didn't care. But like, if you get in, like, for me, that kind of added on to the just the fact that like this movie's good and people want to see more. Like if somebody's visibly frustrated, no. And you
Yeah,
got them.
I think you asked me, Jordan, after, because I told you about this. I think I had a friend of mine who read my first book, and there was a certain character that I killed off, and he was literally, I was living the same time at the time. He literally called me from either California or Texas, and I thought something was really like seriously wrong in his life. I can't believe you. What just happened? And I was like, what are you talking about? And I remember after you finished reading it, you wanted to know, am I bringing such and such back? That was your whole thing. Like, are you going to let this? You gonna let this ride, or are you going to let it?
I can't believe you did that. But like that, like I feel like sometimes you gotta do certain things. Like you gotta do certain things in the story, when you get to that point, and to keep the reader hooked. And that's why I like cliffhangers, especially if it's a part of a sequel, a series.
Yeah.
I want to be excited when I watch the next movie. I don't like pretty bows unless it's a one-off. You got to wrap it up nicely and send that off. But
Well,
I just feel like we've been blessed. Like
we got blessings, y'all. We've been blessed.
like the first movie, solid movie, and it was a solid movie, had an ending, did not expect a sequel, and it was incredible. And then we got a sequel that nobody expected, and it was also incredible. Like, I just feel like we're blessed.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jocelyn.
Yeah, it was good. Thank you all for taking the time out of your day to chop it up with me. The two of y'all that caught us on the live, Monique, I know is one of them. I don't know who the other person is because they didn't comment, but thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to us chop it up of these things. And like I said, there will be descriptions in our links in the description of this episode, so you can check out Jocelyn's art, JP Jackson's art, as well as my author website to check out the stuff that we have created. We will talk to you all next week.
Peace.
See y'all.